Hi, I'm Pav.
And I'm Neil.
And welcome to the Top 10 of Anything podcast.
Let's start the countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You get invested in a TV show, it could be a soap opera, a drama, even a comedy. But when one of the characters dies, it can be devastating. Sometimes it can be applauded and cheered. Most of the times it's shocking and out of the blue. Here's Loz with 10 TV death facts.
So in at number 10, one of the first characters to appear on Sesame Street was Mr. Hooper, who owned the store. He was played by Will Lee from 1969 until 1982. When Lee died of a heart attack back then, most shows, particularly kids shows, would have either never mentioned it or would have explained that Mr. Hooper was out of town. But Sesame Street took the incredibly bold decision to use this as a way of teaching its young audience about death. Over 90 people die every year because a TV has fallen on them. In Corrie, there have been 8 characters who have died by being bludgeoned to death. Since the year 2000, 96 characters have died on screen in Hollyoaks. The most common causes of death in Emmerdale is vehicle accidents. The actress with the most on-screen kills is Charlize Theron, who has died on our screens 25 times. The actor with the most on-screen kills of all time is Samuel L. Jackson, who has died on our screen 1,734 times.
How?
That's what I was thinking. I don't know. He must die like multiple times in a film. Anyway, number 3. The TV series with the third most deaths is Sopranos. The TV series with the second most deaths is The Walking Dead. And finally, with a staggering 5,863 deaths across all 8 seasons, topping the charts for the TV series with the most on-screen deaths is The Game of Thrones.
Look at my dirty girl.
There you go. Right, so just give me that Samuel L. Jackson fact again. How many deaths?
So, I mean, this is like some sort of Reddit thread or something, but somebody reckons that he's died on our screens 1,734 times. Do you reckon they added in an additional number? Because he's probably not done that many films, right?
I can't believe he would have done that many films. There's no one in... well, anyway. But, I mean, look, they're your facts.
Maybe that includes repeats or something.
I don't know. The internet doesn't lie, does it? So, I mean, obviously it's got to be true.
Well.
Anyway, we're here to do TV deaths. And there's only one person that we thought that we could have that could do TV deaths. And it's Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, thank you for having me back. Just a little, my microphone died there, which is very fitting.
There you go.
Thank you for yet another morbid show with my name on it. I'm very, very honoured to be here.
Well, you did so well with TV villains and movie villains. We thought we had to have you back for TV deaths.
It's a good one.
I was compiling my top 10, and I didn't realise quite how many funny deaths, or maybe not funny deaths, but funny shows that had death in.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's going to be interesting whether we've got any duplicates on this. But so what have you been up to then, Lucy?
I've just got back from Paris, actually. So
la la.
went away with work to do some interviews with some Parisian TV shows. It was my first time doing interviews for the press, so I was pretty scared, but I think I nailed it.
Wonderful.
So I'm pretty impressed with myself.
And
Who do you work for?
anybody interested? Oh yeah, go on. Who do you work for?
Sorry, who do you work for, Lucy?
Oh yeah, who do I work for? I'm being interrogated. I work for What to Watch, entertainment website, and we cover TV and film, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Very cool.
there was a company called Unifran, to shout out with them because they were brilliant. They invited me personally, which I was flattered by. And I got to go. In terms of people you might know, have you seen The Death of Stalin?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
We interviewed Armando Iannucci for our
The
old
guy
podcast.
who wrote the original comic, Fabian Nuri, he was there. So I spoke to him about his program, Paris Police 1905. And they had a series on BBC4 called Paris Police 1900, which was the first season. So we're getting the second one in it should be a few months' time, but obviously there's a bit of a delay. But what a guy. I wanted to go for a pint with him. He was lovely, such a nice man, so friendly. And you can tell, obviously, you know, the biting satire of Death of Stalin, that comes through in him. He's a very nice man to talk to. Yeah, he's brilliant.
Right. So we'll put I take it's a website that you work for.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put the
Yeah,
link in the show notes so that people can check it
Yeah,
out.
just
When will your work and everything get up online?
So I've done the first piece today, which is the Paris Police one. And then I have to do the rest tomorrow. That's tomorrow's job. So
Right.
I will keep you in the loop about that.
Nice.
But
Wonderful.
it was wild, I think. Obviously, when it's your first time doing anything, it's quite an intimidating experience. But
Yeah,
I
definitely.
did okay. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, ladies, how hard was the TV Deaths top 10? Lucy, how did you find compiling this one?
yeah, funny you did actually touch on comedy without kind of spoiling it too much. There's a few comedic elements to mine. There's a few shows where it sort of blindsides you a little bit, and some deaths that are actually quite funny in themselves. It was tough. I think my number one spot was certainly a challenge. But I think I'll be able to explain why when we get to it. But I had a really fun time doing it. It was really fun revisiting all of them and watching them again.
Absolutely. Lars, what about you?
Yeah, very similar to Lucy. Actually, half of mine come from comedy series, and I think it's because of the contrast that they stick out in my mind, because you're having a fun time, you're laughing away, and then suddenly something happens and it is incredibly poignant. So it stands out. So yeah, I totally agree with you. There's 5 of mine that are actually from traditional comic series. And then the other ones, both of you, it sounds like you're both like really into your TV and film. You'll be like, oh my God, these are the ones I've picked. You'll be like, oh, you're such a like base TV watcher. So my apologies now, but there's nothing highbrow about mine.
I've just counted mine. I've got 5 from comedy shows on mine as well.
Interesting.
So how weird is that?
Some similar ones.
I think we're going to. Right, let's crack on. Lucy, give us your number 10 then, please.
Okay, number 10, I'm going for a very interesting one, but hear me out. It is Squid Game, the red light, green light sequence.
God, yeah.
Because it's not one death, it's multiple in very quick succession. And it is the reveal of, obviously, you know, these people have come together to play children's games and they just assume they're simply going to play children's games, and then it all kicks off. And I just think it's a fantastic sequence. It's a great way to start the series.
Before we get any more into this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls listening, spoilers, all right? There's going to be spoilers. There may be shows we're talking about that are 10 years old, 20 years old, longer, or ones from a couple of years ago or last year. So there will be spoilers, just to let you know now.
Yep.
So if you haven't watched Squid Game, we've spoiled the red light, green light game, but there you go. I mean, that's become quite famous. I can't believe this is like, Lars, this is a Big Lebowski all over again. I cannot believe I didn't put any Squid Game in my top 10. But there you go.
Do you know what? I've approached it a bit differently in that I've gone for a particular character that's died. But that is so like, I remember watching that scene and just being like, my jaw was on the floor going, oh my goodness, is this really happening? And like that sense of panic that comes over you when you realize what they're doing. What a brilliant scene. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And there were numerous in that show.
Yeah. Every single game, right? Somebody dies.
I think especially like I chose this one because obviously it's the first instance of it happening, and it's the first person that gets shot, and then people go, oh God, oh no, and,
Yeah.
and then it's the mass panic as well, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. I think it's sort of the calm before the storm almost.
Yeah.
You know, they're playing the game, and then the little robot woman turns around, and then it all just goes to hell. I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's one of my favorite. I rewatch it every now and then, just the pilot episode. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's a great
all of a
one.
sudden, all the bodies are just piling up, aren't they? Yeah,
And
Yeah.
that really creepy saying that like everyone refers to is like red light, green light. Like the way she says it. Is that is what she says, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's even scarier in Korean as well for some reason.
Oh right, wow.
Like if you have the Korean audio one when she says it,
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, that's really creepy.
Yeah.
I think when we watched it, we watched the first episode with the English dubbing on it,
Yeah.
and we heard that like it wasn't particularly, what was it they said, there was something
Accurate.
wrong. Yeah, it wasn't accurate, so it was
wasn't
better to
accurate,
watch it
yeah.
in Korean and then watch the subtitles, which is how we watched the rest of the show. But yeah, what a great show.
Yeah.
That's coming back next year, is it, or this year? I think.
Well, we're hoping this year, but we haven't had
Yeah.
any further confirmation on it, so fingers
No.
crossed.
Yeah. Okay, good start. Go on then, Loz. You're number 10.
Oh, you see, you always make me go after the guests who have, like, you know, like a really phenomenal cult TV
Oh, I've got some
program.
wild ones, don't worry.
Mine is Wilson the dog dying on Friday night dinner.
Oh, that was so sad. Oh, that was so
Exactly.
sad. I get it.
Exactly. It was so. I don't know if you've watched Friday Night Dinner, Pav, but
I haven't. No.
it's a very funny, very easy to watch comedy. It's about 20 minutes an episode. It's got the chap who plays Simon in it from The Inbetweeners.
That's right.
And they have this neighbor who comes round with his dog called Wilson, and he's really odd, this neighbor, and this poor dog just sits there every time, and he becomes, you know, a large part of the sitcom. And then in one of the episodes he just dies, and there's this really poignant moment where they bury him in like a flower bed outside their house. And Jim, the owner, just kind of breaks down crying, and it's just because nothing really sad happens in the whole thing, and it's really one of the only things that happens in the whole thing that's sad. And the mum in it kind of has this little tear in the corner of her eye, and I just was bawling my eyes out, and it just stuck with me.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I've never really watched it. I don't know, but it seems to there's a lot of fans of that show, isn't it?
A lot
It's
of
one
love for it.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Good one. Okay. And if it's an animal dying, everyone's going to cry, aren't they?
Oh,
They're just
absolutely.
they're just
Yeah,
gonna-
animal deaths are horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Mine one is a total comedy one. It's from the IT Crowd. I don't know if you guys have seen the IT Crowd. So it's the first episode of series 2, and Christopher Morris, who plays Mr. Renham, who's the owner of the company, gets a call from the police to look at the pension fund, and calls his secretary and says, could you get the police a cup of tea? And then the secretary says, yes, no problem. And he just stands up, walks out to the top of the, opens the window and the skyscraper and just jumps out. And that's just it. That's all you see of him. He's fantastic. I love Chris Morris. I think he's just a great comedian, great director, on the hour and the day to day and stuff like that. And he was great in the first series. He was just, the IT Crowd. I don't know if Lucy, you've seen it. Loz, have you watched the IT Crowd?
I've watched episodes, but I never really got massively into it, I have to admit. It was really good, but I just, for some reason, I didn't, watch it consistently.
And the fact that he then got replaced by Matt Berry, who played his son, was just like, it's a masterstroke, absolute masterstroke. I mean, if you can replace someone like Chris Morris with someone like Matt Berry, you're on a winner. But it's just the way that he jumps out of the window. He's like got his arms right stuck to the sides of his body, and just jumps, just like it's just crazy.
It's become quite a memeable moment as well. I'm sure there's like gifs of it online where people use it for like various things, and it is funny, isn't it? Because obviously suicide isn't funny, but it does make. It is funny in this context, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he knows he's buggered, so he's like, right, I'm off.
Yeah. And there's even a callback a little bit later on in the episode when Moss, I think, is giving some people some computer advice, and you just see behind him at the window, you see a body just fall behind him.
Brilliantly written.
Yeah. And I will, all these deaths will be on the video playlist for our Patreon supporters. So if you want a good night, just watch all these deaths on video. Okay, then. So, Lucy, your number 9, please.
Number 9 is Stranger Things. I've gone for Bob because Bob doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. I mean, it's all about Eddie these days. And
Yeah.
that Eddie's was a great death sequence, but I just think Bob's was so terrifying because they were not fully aware of what the Demogorgon was at that time. Really, it was quite early on in the series, so poor Bob kind of fell victim to this horrible demonic D&D creature. And yeah, like I can't imagine that the sheer fear she would have felt. Like from a horror perspective, it's such a good death, I think.
And he's such a nice guy as well. It just shows you, like, nice guys always end up getting shafted in the end, don't they?
Yeah, I know. Justice for Bob.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I think he does get forgotten. I think he's one of those forgotten characters of Stranger Things because, like you say, Eddie sort of took over a little bit, didn't he? But are you a Stranger Things fan, Loz?
Yeah, I am actually. Although it freaks me out a little bit, so I I can't watch it on my own.
Right.
I have to watch it with Josh, otherwise I once fell asleep with it on, and when I was on my own, and I woke up and it was still on, and I remember feeling really, really petrified. It's just one of those, for some reason it really gets me. But no, I love it. I love one of the reasons I love it is for the music and for the fashion, like where it's set and stuff. It feels
all the 80s stuff.
It just feels so good. I really like it. And when I was researching all these TV deaths, Bob came up as one of the more poignant ones because it was one of the first in Stranger Things, and it sort of sets the scene a bit, doesn't it?
It was one of my honourable mentions, definitely. He was in
oh really?
He was close to being in the top 10, but then other ones just sort of pushed him out. But
yeah,
but he was there.
I don't judge you at all, Loz, though. I feel like that they've really dialed up the horror, and especially in season 4, they've really gone hard with Vecna. Like, he's really scary. So I think a lot of people are like, whoa. It even gets me, something like that grandfather clock, man. I can't look at grandfather clocks anymore. I'm like, right, I've had enough. Get it out. I can't do it.
It's just, it's a bit mind-bending, isn't it?
And the thing, the whole...
because they're children in it. I think that's what really gets me as well. It's not like it's adults that are being, it's kids as well. So I immediately, because I'm quite, in my head, I'm quite childlike still. I immediately put myself in those kids' shoes as well. I'm like, oh gosh, how petrifying for them. Although they all, like by season 4, you just know they're all hard asses and they're going to be fine.
And they also look a lot older than I think their ages are supposed to be.
Right? Yeah.
I was the ginger haired girl. What's her name? Max. She looks
just like my niece.
She looks just like my granddaughter.
Oh my God.
So that whole running up that hill moment, I was in fucking tears because all I could see was my granddaughter up there, and I thought, please, Max, make it.
Please let her live. Please let her live. I know.
One of the most beautiful sequences I've ever seen. It's so
absolutely
gorgeous.
Yeah,
so well done.
It's so good.
Even Kate Bush approved, so did something right.
The way they used the music there was absolutely fantastic. It was like edge of the seat stuff. Go on then, Loz, your number 9.
I don't know if either of you have watched Grey's Anatomy, but George, who's played by T.R. Knight, dies, and it's a really moving scene because all of his so he works in a hospital, and there's just this scene where this patient's brought in and he's been hit by a bus, and they don't know who he is, and they keep sort of trying to save his life, and his face is very, very swollen. And then all of a sudden, she realizes it's George, who is a colleague of theirs. And it's that moment where the penny drops that it's George that they're trying to save. Is just so like, I've just got shivers up and down my spine just thinking about it now. It's absolutely tragic, and you don't see it coming because he's one of the most adorable characters in it. And rumor has it he actually fell out with the director, which is why they wrote him out of the show quite promptly. So it was a big shock at the time.
Yeah, I've never watched like a minute of Grey's Anatomy. I just haven't. I mean, it's lumped in there with all these other shows. I mean, my wife devours those kind of shows, whether they're police shows, medical shows, detective. It's just, they all look like the same, just on a loop. So I'm
Grey's
sure
Anatomy,
there's more to it.
I mean, you need a pill of antidepressants by you every day. I mean, every time you've watched it, it just makes me cry every single episode. It's like watching a film. Every episode is exhausting to watch. I've had to stop watching actually, but yeah, it's very, very good.
Lucy, fan?
Seen bits of it, but like I feel like it's one of those shows where I've come into it too late, and there's just too many episodes now, and I feel completely overwhelmed by it. It's a bit like people tell me to watch like The Wire, and I'm like, I'm too late for The Wire now. I'm too late. I can't do it.
Yeah. I feel the same way about The Wire. I just feel like it's too much to catch up on, right?
I'm sure it's brilliant, but I just do not have the time.
Yeah,
because that's also more of the days when it was 22 episodes in a season as well, wasn't it? Now they're doing sort of 6-7 episodes, 9.
I love a
maybe
mini
10.
series. Give me a mini series any day.
Yeah,
so much
I
easier.
agree.
Completely agree. There's not enough time for that crap. You just can't keep.
22 episodes. What? I can't do that.
That's the Matrix. Have a little slot in your head, stick in a little card, and it downloads the 22 episodes, and you know exactly what's happened. That'd be perfect.
That would be great.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? And then obviously you have to buy more storage maybe to be able to get like the full
storage.
You know, to get, I don't know, all of The Wire, because I mean, and The Sopranos. I've never touched The Sopranos because for that exact reason. Because there's just so many episodes, but there's so many episodes now. I've not watched any of them, so you're talking about a hell of a lot of your life to get that in, you know. And I'm sure there's some great deaths there, which may come up. I don't know. Probably, yeah. Right, my number 9. This is the only animal in my top 10, and it's Bye Bye Little Sebastian from Parks and Recreation. It's the little miniature Shire horse. That's sort of like the icon of the Parks and Rec department, and he passes away, and Andy Dwyer, which is Chris Pratt's character, writes a song for him, and it's just fantastic. Everyone's absolutely gutted, even Ron Swanson. If you've watched Parks and Rec, you know that Ron Swanson doesn't give a shit about anything, but even he, I think he sheds a tear for little Sebastian. And it is you don't see him die, but you see him. I think they do hold some kind of fate, and you see little Sebastian. And like I say, Ron Swanson is one of my favourite characters. I think he was in my top 10 comedy characters of all time. And he just doesn't get excited about anything. He just loves steak, he loves cigars, and he loves whiskey. That's about it. But when they say that little Sebastian is at this fate, he's like a little kid, and he just runs off so he can go and see little Sebastian. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's my only animal in my top 10.
Forgot about little Sebastian.
There you go. There is a fantastic T-shirt with little Sebastian on it. I've been trying to find it. I've seen it once and then not been able to see it again. I've got to try and find it because it's just fantastic. Right, go on then, Lucy. Your number 8, please.
My first comedy death of the podcast. It's The Simpsons. It is Maud Flanders. Because the way she dies is funny, and I hate to say it, but they're sat watching a sports game and she gets hit by a t-shirt cannon and she falls off the bleachers to her death. But it's but also that's contrasted with the aftermath of Ned being absolutely devastated. And I just think the whole like Ned Flanders getting over his wife timeline is an incredibly sad thing in The Simpsons, and it does take him a little while. And yeah, I don't know, I've always just kind of found that death quite shocking because, you know, the Flanders are so iconic in The Simpsons, and, you know, killing off the matriarch of the family is quite a big decision. It would be like killing Marge, you know, I feel like it's a big thing to do. So I think watching that, you were like, wow, they've really killed off Maud, okay. And it's always been quite memorable.
It is. I mean, that's the power of The Simpsons, isn't it? It's like that you care that much. The characters are so rich and so great that you care that much. I mean, if the characters weren't that good, you wouldn't really give a shit whether they were dead or not. No, but that's the power of The Simpsons. Yeah. I mean,
they do emotions well, though. The Simpsons, they have a lot of emotional moments.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then usually Homer will come in and put his big foot in it, no matter what the
usually.
Yeah.
I thought it was good that they tackled that because, you know, people do lose people all the time, and I think it was an important thing to tackle for sure.
Yeah.
You know, the fact you had a grieving single dad with kids. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like a traditional Christian single dad as well. So there's probably some obstacles there around things that he wouldn't have like been used to or whatever. So
for sure.
Completely agree. Go on then, Loz, your number 8 then, please.
Mine was Letitia Cropley in Vicar of Dibley, who is played by Liz Smith. There's a beautiful scene where they're all going in and saying goodbye to her. And Vicar of Dibley, it's such a brilliant little series, and it had some very poignant emotional moments in it, and that was one of them. I believe her character actually did die some time later as well. Obviously, she also plays Nana in the royal family. So yeah, I think it was kind of doubly emotional, because you know that she is actually quite ill when they film those scenes as well.
I forgot she was even in the Vicar of Dibley. I did. I completely forgot that she was in the Vicar of Dibley, so I didn't realise that.
She was in the early series. She was like Letitia, and she used to always cook all the weird food. Do you remember?
Right. Okay. Yeah. God, it's been a long time since I've seen that. So, Lucy, fan of Vicar of Dibley?
I've definitely seen it, but the thing is, it's one of those where like it would be on the telly, but I couldn't tell you what all the characters were called or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like I've seen bits, I've seen like all the iconic moments, but yeah, not one that I'd call myself a fan of. But
No.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's been influential in British TV culture for sure.
The Christmas episode is the one that I always remember, where she has to have like 3 Christmas dinners.
Yeah.
And she's trying to force the sprites into her mouth and stuff. That's like a classic scene. That is.
Yeah.
That is great. Okay. All right then. It was, what was her name? Liz Fraser. No, not Liz Fraser. Was it Liz Fraser?
Liz Smith.
Liz Smith. I'll write that down. Okay. My number 8. Breaking Bad has had so many different classic TV deaths, but I'm going to go for the main man. I'm going to go for Walter White's death. In one of the greatest finale episodes I think I've ever seen. Breaking Bad for me is one of those perfect TV shows. It didn't overstay its welcome. Perfectly wraps up in 5 wonderful seasons, and his journey at the end in the final episode is one that had so many twists and turns in it, but was very satisfying for the fact that he didn't get away with what he was doing. He actually admitted the fact to his wife that he did it because he enjoyed what it made him. He became a legend, as opposed to being just a boring person that was dying of cancer or whatever it was that he was dying of. But the fact that it's that look on Bryan Cranston's face as he dies, I mean, I think that's what a good actor can do. He can have one look on his face, but it can tell you so much. And I've just, like you said, Lucy, about that first episode of Squid Game, I've watched that last episode of Breaking Bad so many times as a single piece of TV. It is just so good. I don't know what else. I don't think there's anything else you can say about it. People have said so much about Breaking Bad, but I don't know. I've also met loads of people that are not fans of Breaking Bad. They don't understand it, or they don't like it. They just don't get it. So, ladies, Loz, what?
I love Breaking Bad. It's one of my favourite shows of all time. However, that was my one. Apart from, there's two episodes I didn't like. The last one, which you've just described, I didn't like the ending, and the one where there was a fly in the
right.
is it a fly or a pigeon, or there was something in the lab,
directed by Ryan Johnson, I think.
That was the most boring episode. I'm sure there was lots of deep and meaningful around that episode, but I remember thinking it was really boring.
That's one where a lot of fans class that as like the best episode out of the series.
Really?
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
joking.
Yeah.
No, people love that one.
Yeah.
No, that was dull. I loved it. The series though was brilliant. I remember being absolutely hooked from right at the start, where you've got that RV going through the desert with all his clothes hanging off the thing.
He's just in his pants. Yeah.
What's going on? It was so good. Yeah, very, very good.
Lucy, you a fan?
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, as far as pilot episodes go, you really can't beat that. You've just said it grabs you from the get-go, honestly. I think that pilot is brilliant. And obviously the Walter White to Heisenberg trajectory throughout the entire runtime is just glorious. I think it's kind of the making of a drug lord from a science teacher who didn't really have anything going for him, really, which is an awful thing to say. But I think he had quite a normal life, obviously. And then it's just the way he just changes. It's just wonderful. Bryan Cranston is an absolute master of like because like keep in mind, like he was doing comedy before this. Really,
Yeah.
he was doing like Malcolm in the Middle and stuff. So
Yeah.
like, I think this was quite a shock for some people to be like, oh my god, wow, this is intense. Oh,
Yeah.
it's brilliant. And
Yeah,
and obviously Aaron Paul as well. I love him as Jesse. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah.
The two of them are just
They are
masterpieces.
fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, one of the greatest shows ever, I think.
I'll stop now, otherwise I'll just talk about Breaking Bad for the whole time.
That's it. Right then, Lucy, your number 7 then, please.
Number 7 is my first, because I'm some of my shows repeat themselves, so I do apologize, but there's some great deaths in these. My first entry into Game of Thrones is actually Ned Stark, his death.
That's my number 4, just to let you know.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of deaths you could choose, but I think with Ned, you know, obviously Sean Bean was used to sell the entire, you know, thing. He was on all the DVD covers, on all the posters, and then they kill him off in season 1. So, you know, we all know Sean Bean's got to die some way, or some shape or form, right?
It's the law. It's the
we
law.
were waiting for it to happen, so it was somewhat satisfying that it did. But it also just kind of hammers home just how fucking horrific Joffrey and his cronies are in that family, just how insidious they are in nature. I just think, you know, I'm not a massive fan of like medieval stuff and like fantasy stuff generally, but Game of Thrones is one of the exceptions. I think they did it really, really well. And Ned's death is equal parts satisfying, equal parts devastating, if that makes sense. Because I was waiting for Sean Bean to die.
Yeah.
I was like, when's it going to happen?
Yeah.
Which I know is ridiculous, but
I think the thing was, it set the blueprint for what Game of Thrones was going to be, and the fact that, like you said, all of the marketing was Sean Bean sat on the Iron Throne.
Yep.
Look at the superstar. Sean Bean is the star of this TV show. And I can remember sitting there watching it with my wife, and it was like, well, if Sean Bean's dead, and right up to the moment when the axe comes down or the sword comes down, you think someone's going to save him in a minute, or someone's going to come and say there's been a pardon, or it doesn't. And then when his head goes, you think, then nobody's safe. If Sean Bean, the biggest star in the show, is dead, then anybody could get an arrow in the eye or a axe to the ghoulies or something. So straight away then you're thinking it doesn't matter now. All the table, you know, the cards are on the table. Anybody can die. And when you've got that point in a show, that's what makes it intriguing. That's why one of the shows I'm going to talk about a bit later on had that. And then you've got your viewer, haven't you? Because then nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going on. And even when someone is just like walking in a field, you think there's going to be a gunshot or there's going to be an arrow or something is going to happen. So, that's why it's in mine. Not in yours, Loz. Not in your top 10. Oh, I mean, it might be number 1. I don't know.
I've got a confession.
You've never watched Game of Thrones?
I've never watched a minute of Game of Thrones.
Well, I've just ruined it for you. Sorry.
I mean, when it was at its peak of popularity, I was working in a really small office with 7 people, all of whom were watching it, and they would talk very enthusiastically about it every single week. So I kind of lived precariously through them, in that I know what it's all about. I know there's always lots of people that dying. I know that it got people really excited. But I'm a bit like Lucy in that I've never really enjoyed medieval or fantasy type stuff. So I never really got into it. And now I feel a little bit like I couldn't, even though I know it was just absolutely phenomenal and it's been, you know, it's an absolute cult classic. I just feel like there's been too many and I couldn't get into it now. And nobody would care. Nobody would want to talk to me about it because it's been and done.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those ones where it just passed me by. I can't remember why I didn't start watching it, because I do quite like watching things with big groups of people. Like I'm watching Happy Valley at the moment. I love talking about Happy Valley with people, you know, whenever that's on. It's like, oh, did you watch Happy Valley? But no, that was just one I didn't get into for some reason.
It's one of those shows, and I will put Lost in this show, in this category. I'll put Walking Dead in this category, where they have your viewer at a certain point and then something happens and then everybody just gets turned. I can remember the moment that Daenerys is on that dragon in the final series and makes that decision to burn everything to the ground. I was going, no, don't do that. And it ruined, I mean, a lot of the last series of Game of Thrones. They made some really weird decisions that everybody was up in arms about. Everybody had already written their version hadn't they? They'd already said, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. None of it happened. They went a completely different way, and then all the fans just turned on them and said, this is what a terrible way to finish the show. But
yeah, it did a Dexter, as I like to call it, because the ending
Dexter
of
was
Dexter was
another one.
absolute garbage. Like,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, yeah. Like and the thing is with Game of Thrones, it has such a strong first couple of seasons, like you said. Like that first season is incredible.
Yeah.
Even the first episode is incredible, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Battle of the Bastards and all of that. Some, the later seasons had some fantastic moments. And
oh, sure, yeah.
Everything was set up for it to take over for me from Breaking Bad as the greatest all-round TV show, like from season to season. And they just dropped the ball in the final season. It's a shame, but there you go. Okay, so that was my number 8, wasn't it? Is that right? No, what we doing? No, you had Eddard Stark, didn't you? Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't write it down. Sorry, my fault. Loz, you're number 7, please.
So this is an interesting one because she didn't actually die in the episode. So in Gavin and Stacey's latest Christmas special, Doris, who is their neighbour, who's played by Margaret John, dies in real life, and they actually toast her. A little tribute. It's just a really small little tribute in the pub where they go, let's toast to Dor because she's no longer with us. And there's that lovely moment where like the viewer knows that in real life she's died, and they go around toasting her, and then there's a pause and they're all looking at Nessa, and Nessa's like, I think she said something about, she still owed me money or something. And it was just a lovely moment because I love that they could still do that. They still felt that they honoured her enough and respected her enough as a person, as an actress, that they could still take the piss even at that stage. And Nessa was the one to do it. I just thought it was lovely, and it was just a lovely moment because
she was always
Doris.
chatting up Gavin, wasn't she? She was always
she was really randy, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Loved Doris as a character. Yeah.
I mean, that still counts, doesn't it? I mean, she died in the series as such, so that kind of counts as a TV death. Yeah, very good. I didn't even think of that one. Very clever, Loz. Well done.
Thank you.
Very clever. Right, mine. I'm going to take you youngsters back to 1984. Okay, I'll take you back to 1984.
I was 2.
There you go. Right. Well,
I wasn't born.
There you go. So what was I? I was 15 years old.
Whoa!
And Dallas was one of the biggest shows on TV. Okay. Now we'd already gone through Who Shot JR and the whole thing like that. But his brother Bobby Ewing gets run over by a car in season 8, and he sort of survives for a while, but he's in his hospital bed. And I can remember sitting watching it, and I haven't rewatched the scene because it was too harrowing for me. But he talks to his mum, and he's saying something like, "Mama, why can't everybody get along?" kind of thing. And then he dies, and all I can remember is going upstairs to toilet with my bottom lip trembling, and for some reason, that was the first time that, like, I think a TV show had made me feel like that. And it was really, really strange because I'd never felt like that about it. And I wasn't a massive Dallas fan. I think it was because Bobby Ewing, it was Patrick Duffy who played Bobby Ewing, and he was the man from Atlantis. And I loved The Man from Atlantis, which was a TV show about a guy with webbed feet and webbed hands that could swim really fast. And it was like an adventure show. So, but then this obviously also set up. So for a whole season, all of season 9, Patrick Duffy wasn't in it, and then I think it was the end of season 9 was the famous scene where Bobby Ewing comes out of the shower and says to his wife, "Hey Pam, how you doing?" So the whole of season 9 was a dream. It was a dream from his wife. So they wrote him back into the show in sort of glorious Lucy's face. Look at it, the shower scene. Look at it on. I'll put it in the video.
Painful though. Why would they do that?
Because I think because Bobby Ewing, Patrick Duffy wanted to go out and try other things, and then realised actually it's quite cool being a soap opera star, and I'm getting money for like doing this crap. And so they wrote him back in, and it's one of the most famous, like, over the top soap opera storylines ever. I think it's Victoria Principal was his wife. She sat on the bed, and she wakes up. Well, she's led in the bed. She wakes up, and she's sort of looking around, and then she goes to the bathroom, and then Bobby Ewing comes out and sort of goes, "Hey Pam, how you doing?" And she's sort of looking like that. So everything that happened in the 22 episodes, whatever it is, of the season, that season, was all in her head. None of it counted. None of it mattered. And then Bobby Ewing was back in the show. So there you go. There's something for you to research there, Lucy.
That's ambitious. Wow.
They got away with it. They got away with it. They went on for
Fair enough. I mean, Dallas is a very famous show. I haven't seen it, but
yeah, I think they did. Well, they did 14 series altogether in regards to the like the old style. They brought it back again in the 2000s, I think. But yeah, there you go. There's something for you. Okay, Lucy, your number 6, please.
Number 6 is a kind of a jokey one, but I've gone for Kenny in South Park.
Oh, right.
Just because just give him a break. This poor child has been killed in so many different ways. I just think it's a really fun trope for them to have. You know, my personal favorite is when his heart gets replaced by a baked potato. It's just stupid things like this. It's just stupid little skits about Kenny. And I just think that, oh my God, he killed Kenny is just iconic. So I think he had to be in here because he's a death that just keeps happening. And I think it's
I mean,
really
to be fair,
funny.
he must have more deaths than Samuel L. Jackson.
He must do. He must do. I mean,
he must do. I mean, it's every episode, isn't it?
Every episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched South Park in years, I must confess, but like, I just remember there's some really funny deaths that he went through. Bless him.
Again, there must be something on YouTube, like a compilation video of all of his deaths. So again, something else to look out for on the Patreon. I mean, to be fair, he has to be in someone's top 10, doesn't he, for TV deaths? Because he is that's all he does. He's got nothing else.
He exists to just die. Yeah.
Go on then, Loz. Your number 6, please.
I mentioned her earlier. So Liz Smith, who played Nana in the royal family, the episode where she died. And again, what was really poignant about it is that we all watched her die, which was a really, really sad episode. And she just gets to meet her great grandchild just before she dies. And then in real life, several days later, she died in real life. Yeah. So now when I watch that back again, it just makes me go, oh gosh, this woman was, she probably was pretty much on her deathbed when that was being filmed. Presumably it was just a few months before.
That's my number 6 as well, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's just such an emotional scene, and she's just so well loved, and the way that the other characters are all, reacting, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful death, isn't it? It's beautiful, surrounded by a family.
It was the Queen of Sheba, I think was the name of the episode, wasn't it? I think
that's right.
There is some great outtakes on YouTube, some bloopers from that episode, and she's got one of the foulest mouths you've ever heard. Liz Smith. She has. I'll definitely put on the video playlist because there's some great. Bits, especially there's a bit when all of the family are. It's her point of view of everybody around her bed. Yeah, and they're all looking. They're trying to be sad, and then for some, I can't remember who it was who says something, and then everyone just starts laughing, and they can't stop laughing. They're supposed to be really, really sad, and they can't do it. They're just laughing all the way. But yeah, I think it's that was one of those shows that it was of its time. It was definitely felt like it was an early 2000s. Kind of show, because you watch it back now and it feels a little bit dated, but I think everybody had a nana like her, that would say inappropriate things, that would think like giving you 10p would be like the greatest thing. You go and buy yourself some sweets with like 10p or something, and you haven't got the heart to say, actually, Nan, that's not going to buy you a penny chew these days. 10p, it's not going to get you it. No. But yeah, so Lucy, royal family fan?
Never seen it, I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
Well, I've seen it in passing on Gold, but I've never really sat down and watched. I've seen adverts for it and stuff, but never watched it. No.
And you never had any sort of thing? I just want to maybe watch one and see what they're like, or
maybe I mean, I'm not I'd probably find it funny. it's just one of those shows that's just passed me by. I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's just one of those. You can never get around to watching them all, can
No.
you?
No.
I think it's what inspired Gogglebox. Personally, that show.
Yeah, probably because that's all they did.
Good point.
That's
Well,
all
they
did.
just sat around watching telly,
Yeah.
and it was just to watch them watching telly. It was very funny. It was very
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so my number 6 was Nana from the royal family. So over to you, Lucy, for number 5.
All right, we're back to The Simpsons. I've gone with Bleeding Gums Murphy this time.
Bleeding Gums, yay!
Yeah, Bleeding Gums. It's a really poignant one, and I think because I've always loved Lisa as a character anyway, so I think for her to lose one of her jazz heroes was very sad. And you've got that lovely scene at the end when he's in the cloud and they have a little duet together, and it's very sweet. Because Bleeding Gums was a very interesting character. Like, he was quite quirky and comedic and odd. But for him to die of, I think he just had a heart attack or something. It was something fairly normal. It was quite a normal, like a natural causes kind of thing, rather than what happened to Maud. And I just think The Simpsons is very good at sort of hitting you with like reality sometimes, and just being like, you might idolize this person, but they're going to die one day, and it's very sad. And when you're a child, you can't really comprehend that he's not there anymore. And I really enjoyed it. I think it was it always makes me tear up, that saxophone duet. It always makes me go, oh, very sad.
Yeah.
Very
Isn't that the one where I think Lisa's trying to waiting to talk to Bleeding Gums when he's dead, and all of the James Earl Jones voices keep coming through the clouds. Like all of a sudden it's Darth Vader, and then it's Lion King, and then this is CNN and all that.
Exactly.
Bleeding Gums to turn up. Yeah, that's a great one.
And they still make it funny. They've just got that unique blend of, I love this series. Bleeding Gums is a very sad one.
Yeah, I agree. That was in probably my 13th, 14th in there, because I wanted to. They're the two at The Simpsons that you think that should be there, but that's a great one. That's a great one. Go on then, Loz, your number 5.
So.
Oh, this has to be important. She's clearing her throat.
This is a bit of a triggering one for me personally, but it was done so brilliantly, and back in the day then people didn't talk about them. So it's actually when Cassandra loses her baby in Only Fools and Horses, and she has a miscarriage, and it's done so well in that, Rodney just comforts her and says, look, we'll get through this. But the bit that got me, I'm tearing up just thinking about it, is when Del Boy is sitting on a staircase with Rodney and turns to him and just says, this is just a drop stitch in life's rich tapestry. And I was just like, it just really gets me. In fact, I think that was in the episode afterwards. I think it's done over a couple of episodes. But what an amazing emotional piece of drama in what is one of the best comedies ever. And it really just, as somebody who's miscarried myself a few times, that scene for me now, even when I go back and watch it, is just so well done. It's very, very well done.
The bit when Del and Rodney are in the lift, and Del does something to make sure the lift gets stuck, but he does it on purpose so that him and Rodney, so we can get Rodney to talk about it.
Yeah,
because Del Boy starts panicking about, I don't know what to do, and it ends up with Rodney breaking down, and that was the bit that just because Rodney's trying to be, I think, brave for Cassandra, isn't he? And he needs to let out. And again, fantastic writing in the point that it's going from high comedy to just absolutely devastation.
Yeah, definitely.
I think especially for its time, like you said, obviously not many people were really talking about that kind of thing. So I think it's so beautifully written, especially with the sort of from the point of view of the father as well. Obviously they have to grieve too, but they don't really know how. And I do think it was, that kind of because Del's very toxic masculinity sometimes, but in that moment, like you said, he finally he's there for his brother, and it's very sweet. Yeah, I love Only Fools. It's one of my favorite sitcoms.
Definitely.
Agree.
It was so well done, done, because I think we're only really now beginning to talk about miscarriage in the way it should be talked about. Only really now, and that was filmed 30 years ago.
Was
So
it
for
the
them to
80s? Yeah, it was in
yeah,
the
for
80s,
them to be talking
90s.
about that, and as you say, from the perspective of the men as well,
Yeah.
it was head and shoulders above before its time. It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
Hats
think
off
that's
to
the
the
thing when you've
writers.
got somebody with the talent of John Sullivan who wrote it.
Yep.
That if you had somebody that of a lesser talent, then it becomes either icky or it becomes uncomfortable. It isn't handled the way that John Sullivan handled it. You know, it can
Yeah.
be just like poorly handled, but that was perfect, absolutely perfect.
Perfect. It's perfect.
But it was perfect, yes, indeed. Okay, my number 5 is the second of my Game of Thrones. I mean, you could do a top 10 of Game of Thrones deaths, but
Yeah.
this one for me was the most satisfying. It's Ramsay Bolton.
Oh,
I think you
yeah.
had to have this because he was such a fucking shit.
Oh, it's
Such
so
a
satisfying.
I
So
mean, and it was the. I mean, again, I think it's my favorite episode. Battle of the Bastards is my favorite episode of Game of Thrones.
satisfying.
And the fact that he gets eaten by his own dogs is and you've got Sophie Turner watching and just loving the fact and turning around, and then all you hear are just these screams of pain as he's being ripped apart. That for me was like, what? It's great when you can have a death that you can celebrate, because death isn't nice. Obviously, it's not nice, but when it's somebody that is as is 100% evil and nasty, that's what you want. You want that feeling of revenge in yourself because it makes you feel better that you've got that payback for yourself as a viewer. So I don't know,
Yeah.
Lucy, whether you feel the same.
Oh, 100%. I think, especially with villainous characters, I think, we spoke on our movie and TV villain podcast as well. There are some that may meet their demise or something happens to them. And it is very satisfying when it does happen, because you've spent the entire thing being like, oh, what a bastard.
Yes.
And then they finally get put to a stop and someone ends it. Or, I think it's the irony of being eaten by your own dogs is quite satisfying as well. I mean, things like Game of Thrones, they don't do things by half, do they? Everything is very brutal and horrible, and there's some nasty, nasty moments, and that is certainly top 10 nasty Game of Thrones moments up there. I mean, it's a rough one, but yes, I do have, I feel some sort of satisfaction when a character I hate dies, and I think a lot of us do.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be horrible to the actor, but he's got one of those faces that you could just punch. Do you know what I mean? He's got one of those smiles. He's got that. Even other things I've seen him in, I just think you just want, whether he's playing a nice guy or even a shit in whatever, you just want to punch him. He's got one of those faces, and I feel sorry for him for that.
I feel sorry for any actor like that. I mean, it's like the guy who plays Draco Malfoy. Like,
yes.
I'm sure it's Tom Felton.
Oh yeah.
Tom Felton.
But I'm like, you just look like because we're so used to being this smug little Slytherin kid, and you're like, oh, so annoying.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah.
That's why he got cast though for that face, right?
Exactly.
Poor Tom Felton.
Exactly. Right then, Lucy, your number 4 then, please.
Number 4. I don't know. Have you guys seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Not really. My wife loves it.
No, I've never seen it.
So I'll kind of obviously give you a bit of context, but it's basically Buffy's mum dies of natural causes. And it's very sad because Buffy spent basically all of this series sort of fighting vampires, seeing death every single day, she's physically killing people, she's dealing with, people being killed by supernatural entities. And then her mum just dies of an aneurysm on the sofa. And it's one of the most human elements to the show is she comes downstairs and her mum's just dead on the sofa. And I think Joss Whedon, for all of his faults now, was basically writing about how, death is inevitable. It's sad. It can be normal and almost quite boring. Because I think Buffy was so used to extreme dramatic deaths and whatever, but just her mum dying on the sofa there. It's an episode just called The Body. And it's the whole episode is just about the aftermath of her mum dying. And she comes down the stairs and she's just sick on the carpet. And it's like, it's just normal things, that you wouldn't expect from a fantasy series. And I think it resonated with audiences a lot because, sometimes death can be quiet and still and just normal. Like you're saying about Nana, just in the bed, just happens. And I think it added a really human element to Buffy. And obviously growing up in the 90s, I was a big fan of it. And yeah, so very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with a show like that, like you say, you get desensitized to the the vampires just blowing up into dust and
Yeah.
That's more of a visceral, real,
Yeah.
down to earth kind of moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I agree. Okay. Yeah, I've never really. My wife had an Angel, like Buffy, Angel, the whole thing, but
Mhm.
I just never got into it. Yeah. And I'm not starting now because there's too many series.
Exactly. It's past now.
Yeah, it's gone. Go on then, Lodge, number 4.
Have either of you seen a series, an amazing series about the AIDS epidemic called It's a Sin?
No,
Yes.
I haven't.
Oh,
I know what
Richie's
you're going
death.
to say.
Richie's death. So played by Ollie Alexander. First of all, the series is phenomenal, and I would say you have to watch it because it makes what happened in the 80s feel incredibly raw and real, and you realize that there are probably some things that were happening back then that are a little bit of a mirror to what was happening in the pandemic, and also with other certain things and that's going on now. So it's a bit of a reflection on society going, actually, we haven't got that far. A. B, it was very, very well performed, brilliantly written, and Richie, who's the protagonist in this, his mum, actually, who's played by Keely Hawes, is what makes this scene at the end, in that he dies off camera. We don't see him dying. And his best friend, who has, it's him, and it's a female protagonist throughout the whole thing, goes to the Isle of Wight to sort of basically be by his bedside while he's dying, and gets there, and this horrible mother, Valerie, sort of says, well, he's already died. And it's just that moment where you hate her, you hate the mother so much for doing that, but also you do still have empathy for her, and that is why Keely Hawes pulled that off so wonderfully. She deserves every award going on under the sun for that particular character that she played, Valerie, which was a very difficult character, but very of the time, of mothers back in the 80s who didn't, to be gay back then, it was shrouded in secrecy, and AIDS was, very, very to be felt ashamed of for parents back then. So you understood her character, you hated her character, but you also felt heartbroken for her character because ultimately she adored her son. So it was a very important screen death for me. Phenomenal acting in that whole series.
Yeah, I mean, Keely Hawes as well, the hospital scene where she finds out he's just been diagnosed, when she's walking down the corridor and she's absolutely raging, she's angry at the world. I mean, Keely Hawes is a powerhouse. She's incredible. And I think nobody could have pulled it off as well as she did. And I think, obviously, yes, it is about Richie's death, but also having the mother's rage and the mother's hatred and whatever amplifies it. So, yeah, that's a really great pick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen...
I'm
not going to lie, I haven't even heard of this.
I think you'd love it, Pav. I think, I wouldn't probably watch it at the moment.
No. It doesn't seem like it's a joke-filled laugh fest.
No, I think maybe wait to the summer when it's not quite such a depressing month, because it's
that
not
might be a good idea.
not an easy watch. It's not an easy watch. It's a difficult watch.
Yeah,
it's a good one. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that then. My number 4 was Sean Bean, Eddard Stark, Game of Thrones. So back to you, Lucy, for your number 3.
Number 3 is another Breaking Bad one. So obviously we've all seen Breaking Bad here. It's Hank. Hank is devastating. I can't even talk about it.
That was devastating.
It's the fact he just essentially gets shot mid-sentence. I'm like, are you joking? It's just right in front of Walter as well, and I'm like, I can't. And I think Hank was always kind of like the sort of that character where it was like his brother-in-law. He happens to be a cop. You've got to try and be normal around him, and Hank's a bit jokey, and he jokes with his wife about rocks and minerals or whatever. And I don't think we were expecting his death to happen. Well, I wasn't, and I just think I was quite blindsided by the way Hank went.
Yeah.
I put him so high up because I remember being very distressed by this scene and oh, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So.
And I think also the whole charade of Walter White just washes off his face when that happens. He's not the hard man,
Absolutely.
he just becomes back to being the pathetic man that he was before, because this is real now, and like it's not just people that he doesn't know dying, it's somebody like family,
Yeah, exactly. And I
right
think,
in front of him. Yeah, that one is devastating. Absolutely.
and I
Loz?
think a
Oh,
little
go on.
bit like the Buffy situation. It's sort of the humanizing of it all, you know, because I
Yeah.
feel like Breaking Bad, while there's no supernatural elements, it's a spectacle. It's very much a drug sort of, you know, drug world, drug kingpin, but killing a family member, you're like, oh shit, it's real now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Loz?
Yeah, that was probably for me one of the most important deaths in that whole series. That, along with, I hope I'm not spoiling any of your, you know, the top threes. I doubt it, but also the death of oh gosh, I can't think of his names, but his girlfriend overdoses.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
That
can't
was
remember her
quite
name either,
that was
but
quite
yeah,
a poignant moment as well. She overdosed, but yeah, Hank I think was the most like, no, not Hank.
yeah. Well, Walter White was stood over his girlfriend, wasn't he, while she was overdosing? So
That's right.
he had
Yes,
the
that's
power to save her if
also.
he wanted to, but he didn't want
Oh,
to.
that's
I
horrible.
think that was
Yeah.
also like the turning point, wasn't it, when you realise he's actually quite an evil man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But poor
Yeah.
Jesse didn't have any luck, did he? Because the other girl that he was liking, that was the one that, and I can't remember what was the. Oh, I forget his name now. I'm gonna have to look it up. But he knocks
Yeah.
on the woman's door, doesn't he? She's got a kid as well, and they just shoot her in the head on her porch
Yeah.
with Jesse
Yeah.
watching, and just I mean,
It's
they are.
horrific.
It's those kind of things that are the things that just rip your guts out and just like, you know,
Yeah.
stamp on your heart and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
oh dear. Anyway, Loz, your number 3, please.
Right, sorry to bring the tone down.
I don't think you can get any lower.
Please do. I
Loz,
need
to be
it.
fair.
I'm feeling intense now.
Going from yeah, It's a Sin, and from Breaking Bad, I'm going to go to the Sex and the City reboot. I'm so sorry. The Sex and the City reboot, which is called Just Like That. Let me put it into context for you. When I was growing up, so from about the ages of 15 through to 21, I watched Sex and the City religiously. It was like when Friends finished, that was a thing that I then hooked myself onto. And it's a thing I watched at university. I watched it through sort of life-defining times. And for me, it was a lot about empowering women to talk about sex and empowering women to feel good about what they wore, and I loved it. I loved the series. And then when the reboot came along, I was very nervous about watching it, because obviously it's quite a long time to have a reboot. I think it was nearly 20 years between when they finished and when they did the reboot. And I watched the first episode going, oh, this is okay, but there were some moments in it that made me cringe. And then right at the end of the first episode, her husband Big, who is this huge character in Sex and the City all through all 6 series, like the main protagonist in it, he's having a heart attack. And you just assume, because you know you've got about 5 minutes towards the end of the episode, it's 30 minutes episode, 25 minutes in, he's having a heart attack. They do it quite casually, and you just think, oh, she's gonna go rescue him, and then the next episode he'll be in the hospital. That's gonna how it's end. You just tell yourself that's gonna how it's end. And then she rushes to him. He's been on his Peloton bike. He's gasping for breath. So he's not dead. It goes to credits, and then over the top of the credits, no music, nothing. It just went, and just like that, Big died. And it was just the most shocking moment for me, because I was so convinced that he was going to be fine, because you know he was there and he was breathing, and people get rescued, don't they? Like ambulances come along and ship them off. But for her to go and just like that, Big died, and then you don't get any music, just the credits rolling up, I was bereft. I was like, you can't do that to us. And it's just the timing of it was just such a shock. And to have that kind of, it felt like, I was back with my family again after all these years, isn't it lovely? And then suddenly for that to happen, I was just weeping. I had to text my friends going, oh my god, Big died. And then obviously there was this whole cult thing, wasn't there, with Peloton afterwards. The Peloton shares dropped, and there was all sorts of things going on. But yeah, it was an incredible moment. So that's my number 3.
I don't think the plan was for him to die, was it? Because I think didn't the actor get cancelled? I think wasn't that the reason that they wrote him out? I thought that
No.
Are you sure?
He was written to be written out, because the whole thing is about her grieving his death. All of the next 6 episodes are about her grief and about her moving on.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so he dies in the first episode.
He dies in the very first episode. Yeah.
Whoa, that is shocking. I mean, I haven't even seen it, but oh my god,
yeah.
I would be livid.
Yeah, because we all
Why?
thought, this is going to be lovely, and then the next episode, she's like planning his funeral, and we're like, oh my god, this is devastating.
That is so sad.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember what that actor's name is. What's that actor's name?
Chris North.
Right.
Yeah,
there you go,
and the whole of Sex and the City, the whole 6 series was about those two finally getting it together and finally getting married. So then to kill him off in the first episode of the reboot, you're like, whoa, this isn't going to be the Sex and the City I watched 20 years ago. And it wasn't. It really wasn't.
I mean, it's a way of making sure you carry on watching, because again, a bit like the Sean Bean, is like you think, right, well then no one's safe. You don't know what's going to happen, do you? So
yeah,
exactly.
Okay, right. My number 3. We're going back to the death fest that is Only Fools and Horses.
Oh yeah.
And his granddad. You got to have granddad.
Oh, granddad.
You got to have granddad. It was another one that was off screen. Leonard Pierce unfortunately died, I think, in between whatever it was, series 3 and series 4, or series 2 and series 3. I'm not sure. I've watched the Only Fools and Horses documentary, and they talk about the fact that they knew that he'd been ill, but they'd all rehearsed ready for the new series and thought he was going to come back, and then unfortunately he died, so they had to rewrite it. And again, as we've just said, John Sullivan, fantastic at being able to create moments of comedy in like the deepest despair. I just think the way that they handled it and the whole episode, but the actual like the funeral scene, where you can tell that they are really grieving. It's not acting; they're really grieving. But that moment when Del Boy chucks what he thinks is granddad's hat into the into the open grave, and then afterwards the vicar is saying, has anybody seen my hat? And it's just perfect. It's beautifully noted and beautifully pitched, and then the whole episode is that Rodney is grieving, but Del Boy is doing what Del Boy does, and he's how you doing, mate? Yeah, come on, do you want a drink? And having a laugh with his mates, and Rodney just doesn't understand, and that plays into obviously later on in Rodney's life, with the way he doesn't know how to react to, the thing with Cassandra. So it's sort of like, it's in his character all the way through. But yeah, for me, that's just such a bittersweet, because I would say the first 7 series of Only Fools and Horses to me is perfect comedy. There isn't a bad episode. They should have left it to when they won the lottery, and just left it. Not gone back and made them poor again. It just didn't work after that. But for me, yeah. And Grandad was such a great character as well.
He was hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, Lucy, your number 2 then, please.
Right, we're going back to satisfying deaths and back to Game of Thrones, actually. So it's Joffrey's death.
Yay! Why not?
Because he had to go, and I love the fact that his death was so pathetic. He just got poisoned. So you just had a drink of wine and that was it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just him lying there, and he's got the blood everywhere, and it's just grim. It's almost like a sort of, you almost think Joffrey deserves something a bit more dramatic, but just to die lying there after drinking some wine, it's pretty pathetic. And I think he deserved that because he was so nasty. He was a horrible, horrible little boy.
Yeah.
He was abusive, when he killed Ned.
Yeah.
And then he was horrible to Ned's daughter, Sansa, obviously, because they were kind of forced into a marriage at one point, weren't they?
Yeah.
Or some kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrible man. So yeah, I was happy to see him go, and I was very, very delighted about it. I'm trying to remember at what point, is it his other wedding where that happens? He's getting married to Marjorie, is it, when he gets poisoned?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost his celebrations get ruined as well. Well, not really celebrations, but it's supposed to be a sort of commemorative event, to sort of solidify his position in the kingdom, and then he just gets offed. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
remember it. I mean, I think I've got the Marjorie thing right. I mean, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's his wedding where it happens.
Mm.
And oh man, it's so great.
I mean, if only his mum had just like pulled his pants down and smacked his bottom a few times, he may have turned into a different kind of person. But
Horrible. What an awful character.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, he's got the Draco Malfoy effect now.
He has-
Sadly, you'll
he
see the
has.
actor in the street, you're like, oh, I hate you. Like,
He's again one of
poor
those
guy.
faces. Yeah, one of those faces.
But I think it just goes to show that the talent behind the Game of Thrones cast, though, and just how they can pull off someone so despicable. I think it's brilliant.
yeah, I agree. But like you say, you could easily do a top 10 of
Oh, yeah.
Game of Thrones deaths without a shadow of a doubt. Go on then, Lodge, your number 2.
Grey's Anatomy again. When Patrick Dempsey, who plays Derek, he died. Again, it was a really big shock. So all throughout the series, him and Meredith are basically the two protagonists in it, and he's dreamy. He's the main character. Everyone loves him. He's brilliant, and it just came out of left field. It was really, really shocking, and he died in a really horrible way. So he got hit by a truck, and then over quite a long period of time, he can still think, but his body isn't awake. And because he's a doctor, he's been taken to this hospital where they don't know him, and he's telling the doctors out loud like what they need to do. Sorry, not out loud, like in his mind. We can hear his mind, but obviously the doctors can't. And it's so frustrating because they keep messing up, and they basically keep making it worse, and they essentially kill him. And it's horrific. And then his wife, who's a doctor, comes in and has to make the decision to turn off the life support machine. And there's this amazing moment where she's incredibly angry at the doctors because she's like, you really fucked up here. And it's so poignant. It's a really, really good death. Really good death.
So I'm right. So I've never seen this. So how does that work? So what is it, like a voiceover?
It's a
of his
voiceover.
brain?
Yeah, it's a voiceover. So he's unconscious,
Right.
but you can hear his voiceover going, no, you need to give me this strip. You need to give me this strip. No, don't do
Right.
that. Don't do that.
Right.
So it's a really panicky feeling where you know that the doctors aren't doing the right things to him, but
Right.
because he's one of the world's best doctors, he knows exactly what he needs, and he needs a brain scan, but they're sort of forgetting to look at his brain. They're like looking into his immediate symptoms of him, bleeding out and things. So it's a very clever, it's very cleverly scripted, but it's also, I mean, to be honest, it actually made me stop watching it. I didn't watch it after that. I was so angry that she wrote Derek out that I've never watched Grey's Anatomy since, and it's still going. It's been going for years and years and years since.
Yeah.
But I haven't been watching it because I didn't feel like it was ever going to be the same again. And again, there is rumours that the reason that she wrote him out is because he fell out with her, the director.
Oh, right.
Shonda Rhimes. She's a bit of I think she's a force to be reckoned with.
But wasn't he like the face? He was the face of the show, wasn't he? He was the heartthrob of the show.
He was 100%. He was, and that's why it was so shocking. Basically, if you ever work with Shonda Rhimes, do not cross her because she will kill you off.
So when they were going to turn the life support off, did the voiceover go no, and then it just cut off, or
no? He kind of then they make a mistake, and then he goes quiet because you can tell at that point that they've killed him.
He just
and
goes,
then,
fucking hell.
No, he just kind of then just go, like, he drifts off into like he's gone, he's brain dead at that point.
So it's an interesting stylistic choice though, to have a narration like that.
It is interesting, and Grey's Anatomy do that from time to time. They have a really weird episode where they have the whole thing done as a musical, for example. So that she isn't shy of trying things out. Good old Shonda Rhimes, the director. She's very creative. So it was a bit weird. I agree with you. I didn't love it as an episode. I mean, I hated it anyway because they killed off Derek. But it was an interesting creative choice to kill him off in that way, definitely.
Okay, right then. My number 2 is a classic British sitcom, and I'm trying to think of any other British sitcom that has got more death in it than Blackadder.
Oh yeah.
from all of the different series. But the one I've chosen is the final scene of Blackadder Goes Forth, so set in World War One, when they go over the top. And again, it's for me, I think it's the funniest Blackadder series. That and series two, and then series two finishes with some gruesome deaths. All the characters are lying there dead. When the show finishes, all of a sudden there's like a bell tolling in the background, and Blackadder and Baldric and Queenie and Melchett, they're all led on the floor with blood all over them. They've been killed by the person that was dressed up as the Queen. So that's just like, you think, my God, that was like really sort of, I remember watching that on a Thursday night at whatever age I was, 15, 16, and seeing that as a final scene to a comedy show. I thought, that's mad. But this scene is absolutely beautiful. It's you have half an hour of Rowan Atkinson trying to find any way of getting over, so he doesn't have to go over the top with his troops, sticking 2 pencils up his nose and putting underpants on his head and saying "wibble" to say that he's mad, so he gets sent away, but doesn't work. Then the realization that they have to go over the top and face the German guns, sort of facing certain death.
Mm.
And then it cuts to hearing the sound of the whistle, and then they go over, and it's all in slow motion, and you see the 4 characters that you know just in slow motion, and there's things blowing up around them, and then it just dissolves, and then it just dissolves up to a poppy field in black and white, and then in color, and then that's how it finishes. And it is so poignant, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely... And I can remember as a kid wondering what that meant. I had no idea what that meant. In those days, kids, there wasn't a thing like Google, so you had to get like an encyclopedia out at school and find out what that meant. With like why a poppy field? That didn't make any sense.
Mm.
You remembered poppies from Remembrance Day and things like that, but it's such a somber and leaves a spine tingling feeling that you've been laughing for half an hour, and then the end of the season is that, and it's that image of the poppy field, and that's it. That's how the show ends. So yeah, that's made my spine tingle again. Oh, okay. Before we reveal our number ones, Lucy, do you want to give us a countdown from 10 to 2, and then Loz and I will do the same.
All right, so try and do this slowly. So my number 10 was Red Light, Green Light in Squid Game. My number 9 was Barb in Stranger Things. My number 8 was Maud Flanders in The Simpsons. My number 7 was Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. My number 6 was Kenny from South Park. Number 5, Bleeding Gums Murphy from The Simpsons. Number 4 was Buffy's mum in Buffy. 3 was Hank from Breaking Bad, and 2 was Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
Wonderful. Loz?
Number 10, Wilson the dog dying on Friday Night Dinner. Number 9, George's death in Grey's Anatomy. Number 8, Letitia in Vicar of Dibley. Number 7, Doris dying in Gavin and Stacey. Number 6, Nana died in The Royal Family. Number 5, Cassandra loses her baby in Only Fools and Horses. Number 4, Richie's death in It's a Sin. Number 3, Big died in the Six and the City reboot, Just Like That. Number 2, Derek died in Grey's Anatomy.
Thank you. And mine is number 10 was Mr. Renham in the IT Crowd. 9, Little Sebastian, Parks and Rec. 8, Walter White, Breaking Bad. 7, Bobby Ewing in Dallas. 6 was Nana, The Royal Family. 5, Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones. 4, Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. 3, Grandad from Only Fools and Horses. And number 2, Blackadder Goes Forth. So, Lucy, what is your number 1 TV death?
I'm really hoping you've seen this, and if you haven't, I'm going to have to give you some context. So mine is a series called BoJack Horseman. It's Sarah Lynn.
Yeah.
So, oh God, right, this is awful because obviously BoJack Horseman centers around, the fictional cartoon horse who was a washed-up TV actor, and he had a co-star named Sarah Lynn, who obviously was a child actor when they first worked together. Sarah Lynn's death is, she's basically grown up, and obviously, like many people in Hollywood, was completely went off the rails, did drugs, went on benders, but she did get clean. But she does meet up with BoJack and kind of have a reconciliation, and then BoJack takes her on a bender, and she dies after ODing on a drug called BoJack, and it just, it's horrible because it says a lot about Hollywood culture, child stars, toxic kind of environment, that kind of stuff. And her death again is quiet. She dies. They're in they're in a planetarium or something. They're like sat on a sort of
That's
cinema
right.
sort of
Yeah,
aisle.
yeah.
And he's talking and he's just rabbiting on, and he's obviously high, whatever. And then he says Sarah Lynn, and then she doesn't reply, and then it's just him going Sarah Lynn, and then there's just no response, and the episode just ends. And I get really emotional thinking about it because it's just, she was so failed by everyone around her, and she deserved better. But I think she had to die because that kind of was a big wake-up call for BoJack, I think. And yeah, like for a series that is essentially about, Hollywood satire and a fictional horse that drinks and does stupid stuff, it's got some really horrible moments. And yeah, it just hurts, that one.
Yeah. It is a unique show, BoJack Horseman.
Really hard to explain to people, actually.
Really hard to explain.
What are you on about? But obviously when you watch it, it's so good.
Yeah, it's such a weird show, but it's got some fantastic moments in it. Have you ever seen it, Loz?
No, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, good. I mean, it's because it's really hard to articulate, and I probably haven't done it justice. But I think in the context of the show, it's really upsetting, and I think it just says a lot about, like I say, Hollywood culture, child actors, addiction, all sorts of stuff, really. So I just think it's a masterpiece of a show, really, and I think her death was the one that really got me.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll put that in the video playlist for our Patreon subscribers. Go on then, Loz, you're number one.
I don't know if you've ever seen a show called Orange is the New Black.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a fantastic drama. I would say it's kind of black humor, and it's held in a female prison. And this scene is where they riot. The women in the prison are rioting. And throughout all of the series, there's a lovely character called Pussy Washington. And she is the brightness in all of the dark. She is positive. She's got a really tiny, petite frame. She is very, very funny. She's always got this big grin on her face. She's just the light of the show. And in this scene where they all riot, she isn't actually doing anything wrong, but she's trying to get the attention of one of the guards. And in all of the chaos, the guard basically puts his knee on her back to try and to say shush, shush, shush. And there's all sorts of things flying at him. And he's a very new guard. He's only worked there for a few days. And basically he ends up suffocating her. And throughout the episode, it keeps going back to her face, and she keeps going, I can't breathe, man, I can't breathe, get off me, get off me. And he goes, shut up, shut up, shut up. And he's not a nasty character. He's actually one of the nicer officers, but he's just panicked. He's panicked and he kills her. Yeah. And it's just so sad because she's such a lovely character and she never does anything wrong, and she's an innocent bystander. And I think this was actually written before George Floyd, I'm not sure, but again, talk about it sort of reflecting true life there. It's a very, very powerful program, actually. Orange is the New Black, wonderfully written. I loved it. Explores all sorts of different topics: race, gender, female empowerment, you name it. It covers a lot of them, but it is terrific. And that was one of the most saddest deaths I've ever watched.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Like, oh, I knew who you were going to say as soon as you said Orange is the New Black. I was like, oh no, yeah. It's such a sad, such a sad scene, but like you say, it says a lot about sort of, criticisms around the prison system and whatever. I think it's a very heavy show, and there's a lot of sort of debate around it, and I think it's brilliant. Yeah
I've never watched it. I don't know.
Again, I think you'd like it, even though it is female orientated. I think you'd like it, Pat.
I like ladies.
Yes, but this is ladies like you've never seen them before.
I mean, look,
I like ladies.
I've seen enough videos of ladies in prisons. I'm sure it's not going to be any different to the ones I normally watch. Surely.
It's got some of that sort of stuff in it.
Has it?
Definitely.
Okay, right. I'm in.
Oh,
I'm
it does actually. It's quite confusing.
Quite a lot
really?
of that going on. Yeah, there's quite a lot of that going on, but there's also a lot of
Right, let's
pretty
wrap this
hard,
episode up then. So let's. I'll go and do
Right,
some
bye.
research.
It's a great series.
Okay. Right, my number one. It is the scene, the whole scene, and it's the scene that was for me the tipping point of The Walking Dead, because after it was never as good, and that's the Negan scene in The Walking Dead. So this is when Glenn gets killed.
Oh, yeah.
And there's not many scenes where I can feel myself being transported into that scene and wondering what I would have felt like lined up as possibly one of these people that is going to get my head stoved in by a baseball bat covered in barbed wire. And the fact that I hadn't read the comic book at this point. It wasn't until after watching this, that we got the comic book, like the compendium, and I saw the scenes drawn out in the comic book and how close it was. It's unsettling isn't the word. It is vicious. It is cruel. It is heartbreaking. It is disgusting. It is vile. And at that point, I thought, my God, this Negan character is going to be one of the greatest villains ever in TV, in movies ever. And then they basically shit the bed with him because they made him such a one-note character. He was the same in everything, and then I stopped after that series. I stopped watching. It became just another show that was on, and I just completely lost. I don't even know what's going on in The Walking Dead now. It was religious watching it and wondering what was going to happen and speculating on who was going to die. But that one scene, for me, I've not been able to watch it again since then because it is just too hard to watch. It is just how they put it on TV. I do not know, because it would be an 18 certificate in a cinema. Do you know what I mean? It would be the fact then we get desensitized by that kind of violence, and I think Walking Dead is the worst for it. People are having their heads sliced off halfway and stuff, and people just go, oh, well, then there's not enough zombies in this TV show. That's what people complain about. They're not complaining about somebody where you can see their brain being sliced in two and stuff like that. That's just what gets me now. It's never shocking anymore, but that scene was shocking, and it had to be, like, not just in my top 10. That was my number one all the way through this. I don't know, Loz, did you say you're a Walking Dead fan?
I've never seen it.
You've never seen it? The first few seasons were like, it was appointment TV, and genuine, like, shocks when certain things happen. Genuine. I can remember me and my missus watching it and, like, holding each other's hand when something happened. Oh my God! And then you talk about it for hours and hours, and then the following day you go to bed, and then you wake up next day and go, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. You know, Lucy, you a Walking Dead fan?
Bit like you, I fell off the wagon after a while, so I was really into it for a bit, and obviously I have seen this scene because it's even if you haven't seen the series, I think as an isolated YouTube clip, it's become like so iconic now. I mean, everyone knows about it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with them shitting the bed with Negan. I don't know what the hell happened there, to be honest. So I fell off it. I haven't watched it in years, to be honest. In its prime though, it was brilliant. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately for The Walking Dead, it's going to be replaced by The Last of Us, which looks brilliant.
I mean, that was the thing. As I haven't
seen it yet. I need to watch it.
Have you not seen it yet?
Not yet. No, me and my boyfriend are going to, like, actually have an event. We're going to watch it. We're going to watch it together. It's going to be great.
I mean, I've never played the game.
Same. He has, though.
But it is, I can see. It is, I mean, Pedro Pascal, I mean, I don't know what he stepped in, but he needs to buy a lottery ticket. I mean, the amount of great work that he's doing at the moment, whether it's Mandalorian or...
Yeah, Mandalorian's in March as well. We're getting so spoiled.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Incredible.
But yeah, I think it is going to take over as the show to watch, without a doubt, if the first episode's anything to go by.
Oh, I've heard really good things. I can't wait.
Yeah,
to watch it.
I feel a little bit envious that you've not seen it yet. That's the thing, because I've seen it and so yeah.
I need to give it my full attention. So I was like, I can't watch this in the background. This is an event. I need to sit down and watch it.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, can't wait.
Let's go through some of the honourable mentions we've got. At Nowhere, Andy said, even though I read the book, the death of Rob and Kat Stark still had me shouting at the telly. Also mentions for Charlie in Lost. Ben, where Loz has gone. Are you still there, Loz? Anyway. Okay. Brendan Fraser in Scrubs and Seymour the dog in Futurama. At this one, Samantha said Bioka in The Last Kingdom and Charlie in Lost. At And Why Not Pod, Lucy Knight, ER is the biggie. That was brutal. Also Joyce Summer in Buffy. Mrs. Landigham, The West Wing, Warwick in CSI, Ben in Scrubs, Mason Drake, Lois and Clark, Will Gardner, The Good Wife, Henry Blake in MASH, Riggs, Lethal Weapon, and Joss Carter, Person of Interest. Honourable mention to the policeman who got covered in acid after the car crash in that Series 4 episode of Casualty that traumatised a generation of children in the 80s. Oh, I can't remember that one. Although if that's on YouTube, I will put that on the video playlist.
I love how niche that is as well. Like it's such a strange
But he must have been one of those children of the 80s that affected, if he's remembered him that well. At Modern Escapism said Rob and Caitlin Stark in Game of Thrones was so shocking. I was left repeating what the fuck at the TV through the closing credits. Omar in The Wire was also well done. Warrior of the Streets taken out by a 12-year-old out of nowhere. And I'll never get over Opie's death in Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, at It's Jen Berg said, I'm still upset with J.J. Abrams for killing Jack Bristow, but the death of Mrs. Langdingham was truly brutal and gut-wrenching. So there you go. I just had a message. Maybe Loz has just sent me a message. I don't know. I don't know what's happened to Loz. So unless she's trying to come back in again. Let me just...
That's all right.
Here we go. Right, I don't know what's happened to that one, but she's back again. Maybe. There she is.
Hello.
Something happened there. What happened, Loz? Oh, connect. At least it's happened at the end. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so sorry.
What did you do? You didn't have it on charge, did you?
No.
Oh, Loz. You're a broadcasting professional.
I always have mine on charge. It's never off charge.
I can't believe it. Broadcasting
Has that messed up the whole thing?
I mean, yeah, we've got to start all over again now.
Do we?
No, we haven't. No.
Thank God for that.
Although, to be fair, I've now got what I'm going to use for the trailer for the episode, so we're going to use this. Is that okay?
Well, that's quite fitting, isn't it? That it's a thing about death and my laptop died.
There you go.
Well, exactly. There you go.
There you go. And you've come back just at the right time, because
so
before we say our goodbyes and everything, Loz, if you want to tell everybody how they can get in touch with us and stuff.
Yes, of course, because I am a professional. So you can find us on all of the social media channels at Top 10 Pods. Spell the word 10, not the new number. If you want to get in touch or send suggestions for episodes, you can email top10pods@hotmail.com. Our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/top10pods. There you'll find great rewards like bonus episodes, video playlists, and limited edition merch. You can even be a guest on your very own episode. Lastly, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, TikTok, and all podcast providers.
That's wonderful. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us once again. As soon as we can find something that's morbid again, please come back and see us.
I would love to. I'm trying to think of another morbid topic. I'll get back to you.
Or maybe we'll find something happy next time. You know, I don't know. We'll find something. We'll find something and we'll have you back again. Thank you so much for joining us. Loz, thank you for joining me for the last few weeks.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I hope Neil gets better soon. Bless him.
So do I. He just
Get
doesn't
well
need
soon,
to wash. Yeah, let's hope he doesn't wash anymore. That's when it.
No more washing, Neil. No more washing.
No more washing. That's it. We've done it. We've done our top 10 TV deaths. So now I've got to go and put the playlist together. That's going to be a lot of fun. That is.
It's going to be a real mixed bag. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to...
Yeah.
So much going on.
Oh, my God, so much going on. Lucy, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Loz, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to meet you, Lucy.
Yeah, you too. It's been great
Excellent.
fun.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm off to go and watch Orange is the New Black. That's what I'm going to go and do.
Hell yeah.
And thanks very much for watching and listening. And let's go start the countdown.
10, 9,